Leonardo DiCaprio stopped by GMA earlier this week to talk about Shutter Island, his new movie with director Martin Scorsese, and he told Robin how much it means to him to work with the man he called the definitive filmmaker of our time. I have to agree with that, and I had a real treat yesterday, the chance to speak with Scorsese in his New York offices.
And the Oscar goes to Martin Scorsese.
Audiences, actors, and Oscar voters call him one of the greatest directors ever.
Thank you.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
The mastermind behind some of the most acclaimed films in history.
Talking to me?
Now, director Martin Scorsese draws on the past in his new film, Shutter Island. A psychological thriller set in the 1950s, the movie features an all-star cast led by Leonardo DiCaprio. He plays a federal marshal assigned to an island that doubles as a mental asylum for criminals. Yeah. Scorsese sat down with me in his Manhattan offices to talk about the movie and its influences. I was just gripped by this movie, and I was wondering, what was it about the story that grabbed you from the beginning?
The script was given to me. It was late at night, and I was reading it, and it was one style of picture, and then it became another and became another, until finally this last scene, and how the character resolved itself, the character of Teddy Daniels resolves himself, and I found I was very moved by it.
Now, you picked a clip for us.
Used to be the kind of patients we deal with here were shackled and left in their own filth. They were beaten, as if whipping them bloody would drive the psychosis out. We drove screws into their brains. We submerged them in icy water until they lost consciousness or even drowned.
And now?
We treat them, try to heal, try to cure. And if that fails, at least we provide them with a measure of comfort in their lives, calm.
These are all violent offenders, right? I mean, they've hurt people, murdered them in some cases.
In almost all cases, yes.
And personally, Doctor, I'd have to say screw their sense of calm.
A scene just a little bit after that, they go to the doctor's house, and there was something that really struck me. The Max von Sydow character talks to Teddy and Chuck, and he calls them men of violence.
Yeah.
And that seems to be one of your big themes.
You know, I guess it is a big theme. I keep being drawn to it. The warden talks about violence being God's greatest gift. It's from the scene later on in the picture. And
you believe that?
I don't want to believe it, and that's one of the reasons I guess I keep being drawn to these stories, because if you take that as what we really are as human beings, that part of our nature which is purely physical, animal in a sense, where survival kicks in and that sort of thing. What is it really? Can violence ultimately be evolved out of our species?
Perhaps, but not out of Scorsese's movies. Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, Goodfellas. You don't pretty it up.
No, not at all, not at all.
Scorsese's mind is a library of film, and he raided the shelves for Shutter Island. Otto Preminger, horror films from the 40s and 50s, and that master of suspense, Alfred Hitchcock.
I think Hitchcock is so ingrained in me that the close-ups, the points of view shots, you know.
You seem to be quoting him in this movie.
Well, I think what happens is that the only way I know how to go about it is that I use the vocabulary of the past 80, 90 years of cinema. It's just part of what I know. And the nature of the story lends itself to that vocabulary.
Scorsese isn't up for any Oscars this year, but he's been keeping tabs on the Best Director race. One favorite, Catherine Bigelow and her work with The Hurt Locker. You think she's going to win?
It may be. It may be. I've always been a fan of hers over the years. Blue Steel, a number of films she's made over the years. Yeah, she's good. She's good.
As for future projects, the veteran filmmaker told me he'd love to take on one of history's most famous tales, from Homer.
I'd love to make the Iliad, yeah. I don't know how you would, because the violence is unimaginable. It's unimaginable.
But for now, Scorsese continues to mull the philosophical question at the heart of Shutter Island. Final question. Is it better to live as a monster or die a good man?
That's the line that made me do the movie. Yeah. I think what's interesting is that possibly the answer to that is up to the individual.
Thank you.
Thank you.